Good evening. Welcome to Voluntary Virtues Network. This is your host, Kieran Pearson, for Kieran Pearson and Friends, brought to you every Monday, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, we have with us today one of our friends, Michael Ocasio,
It's happening.
joining us again for the second week in a row, and I'm very excited about it. How have you been over the last week?
Go ahead, repeat that again. I'm sorry.
I said, how have you been over the last week?
It's been a good week so far.
The beard's looking longer.
Yeah.
It happens, right?
Yep.
It's kind of funny growing a beard in the summertime and doing the same thing. You probably can't see it as good. That's how you know it gets real when you start growing a beard. You're like, I really don't want to have one, but anyway, we're just gonna jump right into it. We're gonna talk about Gaza. We're gonna start the show talking about Gaza. I don't know if you all have been seeing all the posts. I feel like this happens. This is a flare up. Like I feel like Israel is like the herpes of nations. It just keeps having flare ups, and like I feel like there's like one every year at least. So, man, I feel like you know a lot more of the details about sort of Gaza this go around, and related to the last one, Michael, as you were talking about it, and before we started the show, did you want to sort of give a little segue into it, or what do you know about it?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, I've been reading a lot about Gaza lately, both independent articles and also, like CNN and such. And it's just very interesting seeing both sides and getting the accounts of what's really going on, and all the propaganda and the lies and all this stuff that's going on. It's wild. I mean, it's definitely a different year. I mean, the last time they had a conflict, social media wasn't really as big. So you can see a lot of people posting their own videos from home. Right inside of Gaza, you could, that this recent video I just saw actually a few minutes ago. There was a couple of people walking around, and some guy got hit by a sniper fire. And I don't know if it's real or not. I mean, to me, it seems legit, but there's a lot of people claiming it's false. And there's just a lot of stuff like that going on. You see a lot of people getting bombed, etc. So it's different when you can actually see what's going on the grounds, versus just reading about it, in a newspaper or or in any news outlet's website. I just feel like there's so much wrong on both sides. Obviously, murder is not good to have, however you look at it. So it's a very, very broad topic, and it's, just like what Karen said, it is literally like the herpes. Something's always going on there. The worst part about it is that there's just so many innocent civilians being killed, and actually most of the people being killed are innocent civilians. A lot of women and children, a lot of people under the age of 1, a lot of old people. So it's a lot of people feeling the effects of this ground assault and air assault that Israel's conducting. And one thing that caught my mind today was I think the number is about 26 fallen Israeli soldiers, and they're kind of parading them around like patriots. And I haven't seen something like this for individual civilians that are being killed. So it almost seems very one-sided.
Well, I like to sort of paint what Palestine and Israel, the situation over there is. First off, let me state the obvious, and that is statism is slavery. No matter how you slice it, the fact that stolen money is being used on both sides. Not that even Palestine has a formal government, but the fact that Israel does, and that money from the U.S. is being used to pay and subsidize their war effort is somewhat problematic. And I put war effort in quotations because you really can't have a war with people who aren't fighting per se, or who aren't the aggressor, but who are actually the ones who are being aggressed upon. Israel didn't exist until like 1948, and all the land, which is Israel, was basically stolen. Uh, and these people were forced to give up land, etc., uh, in order to form what is now Israel. Right now, there's all of these land grabs, and homes are actually being taken over, and they call them settlements. The Gaza Strip basically is an open air prison. There's a huge wall around it, um, way bigger than the Berlin Wall, like twice or three times the height, built completely around it. This is one of the most densely populated areas of the world. So if you drop the bomb in, like, say, somebody's house, you're definitely going to blow out the next 2, 3 houses next to it and cause some severe damage. It'd be like dropping a bomb on Joy Street in Beacon Hill. I mean, if you hit 78 Joy Street, Beacon Hill, you're going to take out at least 4 or 5 houses to the left and the right, and possibly 2 across the street, because it's just that densely populated. You might get your target, but you're going to get a whole bunch of collateral damage. And we use all of these terms for war, such as collateral damage, such as the fallout or friendly fire, in order to avoid what is really happening. Like, this is murder. If I went out and killed 5 people, if I went out to just go kill somebody that I didn't like, or for whatever reason I want to go and murder them, and I murdered 7 other people in the process, it wouldn't be collateral damage. It's like, oh, those people don't count. Like, it's fucked up that they died, but he was only going to murder this one person, so that is the person that we're going to hold him accountable for murdering. It's like, no, I'm responsible for all those who I murdered, right, in the process. Whereas governments get to do whatever they want, and it's sort of written off. Imagine if someone in your family was collateral damage. How would you feel about that term and that word, and how it's used? So, yeah. So I like to frame it under statism and slavery. The fact that these people are resisting their complete annihilation is not them starting a war. They're firing small rockets into Israel. And, Israel's dropping bombs from drones and helicopters and whatever else they're dropping bombs from. Ships, I imagine, parked right off the coast of what is the Gaza Strip, and they're just firing into basically this detention center, this concentration camp, and making it look like these people are somehow even able to defend themselves, or form some kind of like war effort against the state of Israel, which is subsidized to the tune of like $6 billion US a year or something like that, like some ridiculous amount of money. It has been every year that has existed by the U.S. So when you talk about sort of the conflict in Gaza, I mean, what you're talking about is the slow annihilation of a people by a state based on their ethnic group, or their particular religious class. Nothing more than that. People often ask, what would it look like if there was anarchism, there was really no government, and what if some country decided to invade us? I guess people are saying us, like the U.S., as if the U.S. shut down and it became an anarchist state. What would happen if we were then invaded? And so you have no better example to look at than Palestine and Israel. Michael?
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything you said, it's definitely quite a massive prison, and it's made it, they make it look like they are able to fight back, and it's barely so. that would be very interesting to see if a nation were to invade an anarchist society. The thing is that I think the difference with that would be everybody would have their own arms, or at least would know people with arms, and they would be able to better defend themselves for their own particular community.
Well, I was listening to some Rothbard earlier, and he was talking about how governments have a damn near impossible time fighting against anarchist societies. These people who live in the mountains, who live in the hills, who are quote unquote uncivilized, uh, they have a darn time fighting against them. Because there is no central authority, there is no leader, there is no central nervous system. It's all of these factions, all of these individual cells that are damn near impossible to shut down. And so you look at a situation like El Salvador, and you look at a situation like Vietnam. It's damn near impossible for them to win. Like, you can't. Like, these are people fighting for their freedom. It's not for the freedom of a country. It isn't. They're not out there because they were conscripted by the government to go and fight. Like, they're fighting for their own freedom, for their house, for where they live, where their family has lived for thousands of years, hundreds of years, to get away from oppressive governments. So it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to defeat these people, and there's just going to be more and more of them. So governments really don't do well against fighting against anarchist, quote unquote, anarchist states. So I never worry about sort of what that would look like. Anything else that you think is pertinent or might need to be added to?
No, it's pretty obvious. I mean, the last things I just want to add was, some things I actually learned because I haven't really followed too much of the history of Israel and Palestine until lately. But everything is all controlled, like the water systems and such. And I believe I saw some articles on some people doing their own rainwater collection and those type of things there. So it's interesting how innovative they're becoming even in the worst conditions. Very inspiring just looking at it, just to see how people can survive off of nothing. Because they do have water limits, and even in this terrible circumstance, they have to pretty much work around statism. But it's very interesting stuff to look at.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody has any comments out there and watching the show. If you do, you can leave them on YouTube, leave them in the comment section or in the chat section, and we will be able to look at them. Let me see if I can pull them up here from my toolbox. And I don't see any as of yet. But so we're going to move on, I think. We're going to talk about Eric Garner. Now, have you seen this? I saw you posted a couple of times. I saw it like the day it happened, or like the day after. But Eric Garner was a man in Staten Island who allegedly was breaking up a fight or had broken up a fight. The police were called and intervened at some point in time, and they confronted him. He was saying, "Hey, look, I don't have an issue. There was a fight. I broke it up. Like, you all are harassing me now at this point. What's going on? I'm tired of you all harassing me. You all do this like at least once a week. Blah blah blah." Right? I guess he had been known or was allegedly selling single cigarettes, which in the state of New York, what happens is that the government has taxed cigarettes so incredibly high that it's actually quite profitable for people to go to neighboring states, especially Virginia, which is pretty close. Not that it neighbors New York, but it's a very short drive, and buy huge amounts of cigarettes and say a U-Haul truck, etc., and drive back and sell the cigarettes individually for $1 a piece. $1 a piece. So like a $10 pack of cigarettes, as it probably would cost in New York or somewhere about there, probably a little more than $10, would actually cost $20. So imagine if you go somewhere like Virginia, where cigarettes, a pack of Newports, would cost you $4, and you buy a carton, which will cost you way less, and you sell the carton essentially for quadruple what you paid for it. I mean, that's a hell of an overhead. That's a hell of a profit, and worth the time investment to do so, especially if you go and rack up and buy a whole bunch of cigarettes. So steep penalties if you get caught, but like you're not really going to get caught, more than likely, right? So people are going to buy cigarettes, and there's a whole underground market, and people make a pretty good living selling loose cigarettes on the streets of New York. Now, the government, of course, isn't having this because, you're stealing money from the government. They do not like competition. The government actually has a monopoly on creating monopolies, right? So if they say you can't do something, if you cut into their bottom line, they're not having it. So anyway, this man was confronted. Needless to say, the confrontation got out of hand. The man was restrained, i.e. choked to death. He was put into a choke and held to the ground and had knees and stuff all in his chest and on his back. Said he couldn't breathe, and then after that he went quiet and had, I believe, a massive heart attack and died on the scene. If you look at some of the footage, you can tell he's probably dead at a particular point because he's completely gray. And this is a father of 6 and was murdered over some cigarettes. Now, I've heard this trifling shit. People getting killed for trifling shit. I'm from Gary, Indiana. You know what I'm saying? I've heard of people getting shot for like, being disrespectful to somebody's mother for not opening the door because their mother walked in or saying hello. Look, I've heard of some trifling shit and why people have gotten killed. Like, this dude got killed for some cigarettes, right, by the state. I want you all to let that sink in. We all needed to be protected from this guy selling cigarettes, right, for $1 a piece. And the only reason why he was selling cigarettes for $1 a piece is because the government made it, illegal. Michael, what did you notice about this, or anything you want to add in regards to this situation?
Yeah, and to add on that, there's actually a lot of people around here that I know that do the same thing. I even have some friends of my own that they buy in bulk and they sell off. I think that watching the video, you see the guy clearly doesn't want anything to do with the police. He's being as respectful as possible, and to my knowledge, and I have my own eyes, he clearly was not resisting arrest, but it's very absurd to see a man die over a couple of cigarettes. And this is also another guy, I'm sure you guys have already seen this or heard about it, but he apparently broke up a fight as well, which I found kind of interesting. And I'm not sure if that's what triggered the cops to come by, because I didn't see the beginning or read the article prior to that. And even after his strangulation, there's more footage of the aftermath, and everybody's kind of just standing around, and the cops apparently don't know how to do CPR, so they kind of just sat there and watched the man die. And he's probably already dead anyway, but nobody made an effort to even revive him. And this was all caught on camera, so broad daylight. There's people standing around, and one thing I noticed about the cops is that they will not let you get close to somebody. So say like me or someone else had medical backgrounds, and we want to go revive the guy, we wouldn't be able to do so. They want the whole area locked down, and they literally just let him die. He couldn't move. There's nothing he can do. He's in handcuffs. He's a bigger guy. He's they didn't even bother to take the handcuffs off and clear his airways. It's very, very unfortunate to see someone like that go out.
Yeah, I definitely saw. There's at least two videos. One looked like it was taken from inside of a shop. I believe it may have been an Asian shop, and the guy was making commentary. And he was like, Why aren't you all even trying to administer CPR?" And the cop was like, "Oh, he's still breathing." Like, the motherfucker's gray. Like, you don't go from black to gray and still be breathing. Like, I don't believe that shit. So no, they put no effort to take off his handcuffs or to administer CPR. They're just like, checking his pulse and like jiggling him. "You're gonna be all right, buddy." Like, nobody put any effort to save this man's life. Um, and like, I'm huge. Like, I'm 300 pounds. I'm 6'5". I'm not like super chubby, but like, I got a little pudge on me, but nothing crazy. Like, I'm very muscular. I got arrested recently, and they had to use two handcuffs on me. Right? I'm pretty sure these dickhead cops put one handcuff on this guy, one set of handcuffs, and I had two. And I only had two because I actually knew the cop, and he wasn't trying to be that much of a dick. Although he was arresting me for paying my fucking taxes, which is absolutely retarded. But anyway, the handcuffs hurt like hell. Like, I couldn't feel my hands or anything. And once I got to the station, and the station was around the corner. It wasn't like blocked, so it literally was around the corner. Like, the officers who arrested me walked to the station before I got there, and I was in the car in the paddy wagon. So, like, this guy's being restrained with some fucking handcuffs that hurt like hell, and he's huge. This dude was really big. If you haven't seen what he looked like, and he's on his side. People suffocate all the time from not being able to breathe, just from under their own body weight. And cops they have a policy now where they put people on their sides if they're going to be on the ground. Like, this dude already was huge. They put five guys on top of him for no reason, and he had a heart attack. He was already stressed out from them even confronting him in the first place. Right? So, for cigarettes, right? This dude died over cigarettes. Cigarettes will kill you. Just like everything else, more than likely it will be a government agent doing the killing because you had that particular thing, right? Or because they're trying to enforce some particular law regarding that particular thing that, quote unquote, will kill you, right? Marijuana is dangerous. Yes, people die because of marijuana, and it's because of the state mostly, and not because of marijuana. So, um, yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time. I feel like a lot of people aren't cognizant of the fact that police aren't actually there to protect them. Like, this is a peaceful man. He wasn't out assaulting or hurting anyone. And what's sad is that if you read some of the comments, a lot of comments online, most people were like, "Well, he should have been selling cigarettes. He knew it was illegal." Is that justified murder? Like, what if this was your husband? What if this was your brother? Uh, what if this was you? So, um, I don't know. Michael, any comments as a father? Like,
Yeah, I mean, this guy, he has 6 kids. I don't know the ages of the children. I should probably look that up, but 6 kids, that's a lot of kids, missing a father. Um, this guy is never going to see his grandchildren. He's never going to see his children grow up, all over a box of cigarettes. So, I mean, people could try to justify it however they want. They can try to say he shouldn't be selling cigarettes, so he got what he deserved, etc. There is no reason why this man should have been killed. There's nothing he's done that's warranted death.
mm-hmm.
These guys, they are not executioners. They are supposed to detain the men, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely sad, and the worst part about it is that what I read later on was the guy that actually wasn't the one that choked him out, and strangled him to death, is now essentially doing desk duty. So I doubt we're gonna hear about this guy, going before a trial and defending himself. It's gonna just be one of those stories that kind of gets put away. You'll hear about it later, maybe in a year from now, once it starts to die down. And that's what's unfortunate. We see so many of these police brutality videos and all these stories, and even though, you and I and other anarchists and just people in general that are just upset with police, that have families, and they express their distaste for police in general, they become desensitized to it, and it just becomes normal.
Do you, do you do you think like our friends and family, especially friends and family of color, and I hate to make these distinctions about race, but I feel like a lot more of this stuff happens to people who happen to be so-called black than others. Although it does happen a lot to white folks, and a lot of so-called white folks, as I like to call them, real light-skinned niggas. Um, it's happening to them more, and they're seeing it more and more because of YouTube and because of social media, and a lot of them are waking up as well. And I welcome them to the ranks of the awakened. But as people of color, I often find that they are very sort of dismissive of these situations. Is it that they've seen it so much that they're just hoping that if they keep their head down and like don't stick out, then it'll never happen to them and their family, and they'll get through it and they'll make it through life that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case, and I can't speak for everybody, but at least growing up and seeing my own family, and also friends and friends of family, um, being a man of color, or be it black, Latino, however you want it, or even just from certain neighborhoods, etc. We're taught at a young age, just watch out for the police, stay out of trouble. These are things that we're taught very, very, very young. Even my own dad, he's had his own run-ins, and tells me all the time, just stay away from the police, don't talk to them, etc. So when you're taught these things at a young age, or seeing it firsthand with your own eyes, it's hard not to just dismiss these things as, oh, this is just how it is. It's difficult, and I think when people get older and they get wiser and they start reading stuff for what it is, and they start seeing people coming together and pretty much having a large discussion on the issues of police brutality, I think that there's some hope for people. I think it starts with awareness, and you have to keep sharing, keep talking about it, and just like what you said, you definitely need to wake yourself up. And I've even seen people on my own feed that still vote, they love Obama, etc. Status. They're waking up slowly. I'm chipping away at them, and it's having some progress. I'm starting to see them posting videos from the places I send stuff from, like Cop Block and other pages. So it is a very slow process, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that has to be done to unteach people about the things that they were taught. I think it's important to still take the lessons of don't talk to police, but I think it's also important to not run away from the issues.
Right. Right. I feel like very often a lot of people are doing the whole ostrich head in the sand type scenario, where they're just trying to avoid the shit like the plague, and hopefully it won't happen to them. It's sort of like the when you're walking through the woods and you see a rabbit, and the rabbit is completely still. Like, you see the fucking rabbit, and the rabbit thinks, okay, if I'm still, he won't see me, he can't see me, right? But I fucking see you, rabbit. Like, most of y'all are that rabbit. Most of y'all are exactly that rabid, and you don't realize, like, they see you, and it's just a matter of time before they come and fuck with you. You can't hide. You can't hide. Like, we out here, and you know, especially if you have the misfortune of being someone who is often targeted by the powers that be, then you're probably going to get fucked with, and it's very important that you learn about how to protect yourself in these scenarios. You can know all about the things to stay in a police stop, but at the end of the day, it's a roll of the dice whether you're going to survive it or not. Even if am I being detained or am I free to go? There's a good chance that you still might end up dead. And that's because the violence of government can only go in one direction, and that's down. If you try to defend yourself from these kind of onslaughts, these type of attacks, you probably end up dead. Like, imagine if one of those guys, when they were choking him, one of the people who were filming or a bystander came in and started, fucking up the police officers. What would have happened then? They probably would have been killed. The other guy would have been killed and arrested. And they would have been doing large numbers for assault on an officer, like an officer isn't any other person. Like, if I was doing that to another person and somebody intervened, like, they would be a hero. Whereas if you do it to a cop who's assaulting and murdering someone and you intervene, you're going to jail if you don't end up dead. Now, this is the reason why I tell people, like, I don't want police, because they're not accountable in the same way that you and I are. For some reason, they're looked upon as having more rights than you are, which is why things like cop block are so powerful, because they often say that, having a badge doesn't grant you special rights. You're not some kind of superhuman. You're not some type of, god or demigod. Like, you're a person just like everyone else, and you are absolutely responsible for your actions, just like I have to be. And this costume and this little fucking badge doesn't grant you special rights or privileges, and you should be accountable for all of your actions just as I am. If we did half the shit that cops often do and are often, let off for, then, we would be thrown in cages for years and years and years. And they get desk duty, desk detail, like paid administrative leave. Like, I believe some of these cops kill people just to get a vacation. That's how I feel about it, seriously. Because, you don't go and become a cop because you actually want to help people. I don't give a fuck. Like, if you want to help people, go build some houses in the third world, or like, plant a fucking garden in your community, or like, go house to house and collect canned goods and extra clothes. Like, if you really want to help. You putting a gun on your side and throwing people in cages for having marijuana, for having crack cocaine, for having whatever they have, for victimless crimes, you're actually doing way more harm than you are doing good. And you fucking know it. And you love the power trips. You love being able to speed fast through traffic and turn on your sirens, and you're fucking scaring everybody when you do this for no reason. Like, people already are, like, shit scared of everybody anyway. Now they're shit scared of you, who's supposedly protecting people, and you're turning on your sirens just to be able to blow through a fucking red light because you're a dickhead. Right? That's not helping people. People don't want to hear your sirens at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning when they're trying to sleep. You're giving them fucking PTSD. And you don't even fucking know it because you got your head so far up your ass you couldn't care less. You're not helping anybody. You should quit. If you're a good cop, fucking quit. Quit today. Write your letter of resignation and go get a real fucking job that requires some real skills other than being a complete dickhead.
Yeah,
anything else you want to say about this?
On the topic of good. We didn't hear a lot about these good cops that, they're around and going to these kids' baseball games and, saving dogs and all kinds of bullshit. And these are the same guys that let people like Eric get strangled. And I often wonder if in their heads are they thinking to themselves, this is fucked up, or or are they really like, well, this is what cops do, so I might as well just join the gang. Um, it definitely takes a toll on society to see this happen every single day. And just like what you pointed out with the sirens, it's interesting because I don't know if any of you out there are from Boston, but the particular sirens around here now have changed a little bit, so they're actually a little bit more intimidating. They're very, very loud now, and it's done on purpose. They do it to scare you.
They have this like supersonic bass, this vibration now.
Yeah, the first time I heard that shit, I was like, what is this? Are we like about to be bombed or something? Like, I literally woke up out of my sleep and I thought that it was bomb sirens. And I look out my window because I live on a busy street and I'm always hearing sirens and I'm used to it now. But yeah, I mean, that shit will freak you out. They know it. It's been studied. They know how to get to you. They have the lights are crazy. The sirens are crazy, and they put you in a position where you literally are mentally and physically shut down to the point where they can just go in and do whatever they need to do to you to break you down even more as a human. And it sucks. And you're right. Like if you fight back, you will be killed. If you're pulled over for anything, if you're stopped for anything, you will be killed. Just a couple of months ago, I was hanging outside of my house, and I live in front of a hospital, so it's very interesting. I was hanging out in my corner, and a detective police car came out of nowhere and just jumped out the car, and they literally began to pat me down. And I didn't authorize it, but I knew. I was like, you know what? I just came from drinking. I'm not going to say anything. And I told them I was in front of my house, and the first thing they asked me was, do you have any weapons on you? But they patted me down anyway. They took all my information, and I don't know. The guys seemed a little agitated, but I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna bother with them today. And this is the type of stuff that happens in my area, at least. I see a lot of people getting just randomly selected, because you never know. They might roll up on you. What do you do? What if you're carrying a pen in your pocket and they consider it a weapon? You literally never know what could happen in any circumstance at any given time of the day. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. You can be in a business outfit. You can be wearing street clothes. Like you have no defense. I mean, it's almost to the point where you just have to stop talking and just get on the ground and let them handcuff you because they're gonna do it anyway. So like, what do? Do you stand up, for yourself and fight back and get killed and make an example of yourself and it goes unnoticed? So this is the problem with police officers. This is my problem with cops. And quite frankly, we don't need the motherfuckers.
But, for me, you're absolutely right. Like, we don't need them. People are often asking me, like, oh, well, how will we protect ourselves without cops? It's like, yo, you've never even been robbed in real fucking life at gunpoint. The only person who has robbed you at gunpoint was a fucking cop. It's like, what do you mean? Like, every time you get pulled over, the threat is, if you don't pull over, we will shoot you. Right? Go a little further than it's sort of designated like you're supposed to pull over the first chance you get. Go a little bit further than what the cop thinks you should go. He's running out of his car. He's going to yank you out of the car, throw you to the ground, and arrest you, right? Don't pull over as soon as some sirens come on. Then he's going to pull you over, should you pull over in a designated amount of time that he's deemed acceptable. He's going to get out the car. He's going to tell you that you were going too fast, and he's going to write you a ticket, or you ran some stop sign, or you did this, or you were tailing someone, or like your rear tail light was out, or whatever the myriad of other victimless crimes they seek to punish you for, right? They write you a ticket, they write you a fine. If you don't pay that ticket, like, the threat is murder. Like, they're threatening you at gunpoint. So, like, the only time most people have ever been robbed is by the police. That's why you're never excited when you see police sirens behind you. You're never like, yay, the police are here. If they're really there to protect you, then you should be glad every time they pull you over. but you're not. And this is the cognitive dissonance most of you live with. Your minds are fucked up. You don't even know it. You have a severe form of Stockholm syndrome, and it's called statism. Right? Because you think the police are there to protect you, yet all they've ever done is pull you over. And actually, when you do call them for some real shit, more than likely you are going to get killed. I've seen numerous cases of people going to jail because they called the police. I saw a lady who was beaten and stripped naked, and she had gotten assaulted by her sister, and the police arrested her. They threw her in a cage, they stripped her butt naked, and they beat her. Right? I saw a guy, this shit, it's all these videos on YouTube. You can go and watch them all. There's thousands of them now at this point. These are just the ones that they catch.
Yep. There was
the ones that they fucking catch.
Have you seen the one with the what was it? One of those internal affairs guys?
Oh yeah, I saw that one recently.
That one was hilarious. Like it's crazy. Like this guy was speeding. I heard the second part of the video. I wish I had the link so I can post it. But the cop was talking about how it all went down, and I guess the internal affairs guy was pretty aggressive towards him. So it's like they had this weird little power struggle going on, and he got yanked out the car anyway. And all these cops came out of nowhere, and then by the time it was all said and done, they found out who he was, and they all, they let him go. I mean, he got off. This guy was speeding. He was literally almost to the point of assaulting a police officer, and he got away. And these are the same people that, if it was me or you that did that, we would have been killed. Right. Above the law bullshit.
Well, I mean, the cop who was who had pulled over the internal affairs cop said he almost shot the internal affairs cop because he was acting so erratic, hopped out the car. And like, had it been anybody else, more than likely it's a good possibility that he would have been shot. Or had the internal affairs cop been a person of color, there's a good chance he would have been shot. And looking a certain way or had a certain motif about him. The whole situation was crazy. And, I don't think the cop had a reason or a right to pull this man over. But in that situation, once he had pulled him over, the situation was volatile enough in which, the cop could have been somewhat justified in shooting him. But again, the cop shouldn't have pulled this guy over in the first place for a victimless crime. So that's just me, But they have this weird double standard, this weird situation in which, they feel like they're above the law. And, this internal affairs guy was probably like, yo, who the fuck are you to pull me over? And like, the cop was saying like the cop car was straight up civilian. It had no special tags. It didn't have the quote unquote police sticker. And if you all are riding around and you all see this, this blue bar with the black bars on either side of it, that's a police car or someone who is affiliated with police in some way, shape, or form, usually a cop car. And they put that on their cars so that they don't end up pulling each other over. It's like, you talk about a double standard. You all most people don't even recognize and realize this shit. Is that they have their own society in which, you're not a member of. And they'll let you know all the time that you're not one of them. And even if you do have that sticker on your car, they'll still pull you over and just to check and see if you are a cop. And if you're not, you better drop some cop's name in their jurisdiction or else they're going to write you a ticket. So the fair, you talk about protecting you, they have their own society. They have their own clique, and you're not a member of it. They don't give a fuck about protecting you. Anyway, we're reaching the last 15 minutes of the show. I wanted to address Anything before I go on? Anything else you want to say about police and police brutality and Eric Garner?
It's
Mike?
always different every single day. It's always something new. I feel like every day of this week there's been something, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just me or if I'm just paying attention to things more, but I'm at least glad to see that people are out there recording. I do hope that the awareness continues to spread, and people. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're living in a day and age where technology is everywhere, and even the police can't hide from cameras. Um, so it's gonna be very interesting over the next few months to see where police brutality goes, and just to see what people do and how they react to it. Yeah, I mean
Right.
that's pretty much it on my end.
I keep hoping that people like friends that have followed me for a while, who I'm always sharing links with, like Danielle Dates from my hometown where I went to school. Uh, sh- she and I went to school together when we were kids, and I always send her stuff about the police because she thinks that they're there to protect her, but she actually had an incident in which there was police there, and she was terrified because I think it's sinking in that they're not there to protect you. And I was really excited, not excited, but like I was happy that she was waking up to that reality. And I hope more people do. Uh, my last message is for like the people who are probably watching the show, the anarchists. I feel like most times people who identify as status or who are status um, don't really watch the show, and so we end up having these conversations really for each other's benefit in order to make our own arguments sharper and to be able to understand issues from each other's perspectives on anarchism. Um, but my message is that we often and I'm going to start including this segment and talk about different subjects as it involves anarchism. And I want to end the show talking about business. Most of the anarchists that I feel are anarchists, the anarcho-capitalists, and you could be an anarcho socialist or anarcho-communist as long as you aren't willing to hurt or harm anyone. Uh, through taxation, through creating some kind of government that is quote unquote anarchist, uh, then do whatever you want to do as long as you're not hurting or harming anyone. Message to the anarcho-capitalists. I think it's very important that we as anarcho-capitalists create businesses, create opportunities in which we can actually be producers in the market. Many of us, talk about bringing business or how businesses should be able to operate in a free market. And I feel like some of us really aren't, and I'm speaking for myself as well, aren't uh, bringing our skills and our technical expertises to the market in a way which is indicative of our understandings of ethical behavior uh, based on what it means to be a human being, right? This is our profession. We're professional human beings, and that in our profession of being a human, there's an ethic. There's ethics, right? And we understand those ethics as anarchists more so than most people. And we have a responsibility to do business in a way that helps perpetuate those things. So, message to many of the anarchists who do not work for themselves, who have not put their skills on the market in a way that validates the market. Please do so. Start to do so. Engage with the market. Try to have more interactions and more voluntary exchanges with your skills, with bartering, with Bitcoin, with Litecoin, with with gold and silver, or skills or whatever. Engage with the market as much as you can. Learn new things. Have people teach you how to do welding. Have people teach you how to do things and exchange with them. Create this network in order to make businesses prosper, to make it so that people who are anarchists, who do understand this philosophy, have more money and have more clout and ability to be able to go out and do the things to help spread these ideas and philosophies. I think it's of the utmost importance that we do so. I know that my friend Michael is a wonderful photographer. He's in the Boston area. If you need photographs taken, I'm pretty sure he would love to come by and photograph your family, your newborn children, your wedding, whatever. You know, hit him up. You know, I'm sure he and Jessica Cologne, who also is a photographer, can come by and do a tandem shoot for like a wedding or like a family reunion or whatever it is that you want. And try to make your interactions cash. You know, hey, if you pay me in cash, I'll give you this discount. Because everything else, you know, I have to pay for in taxes, right? We'll form a contract. Everything will be in a contract, but we don't need to make this contract, you know, legal in the sense that the authorities need to know about it until there's a problem, right? Which there won't be, because I'm offering you this good service, because I understand that offering you the best service possible will only help me further. I'm not here to gyp you or to defraud you, because that's against my ethic, because I'm an anarchist, right? So I think in that way, we are poised to create a context in which people understand anarchism, at least on an economic level. That, you know, I would rather do business with an anarchist because I know they're going to give me the service that I paid for. They're not going to gyp me, and they understand that the free market is how people, you know, make their livings, right? Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. The ethics is key. Far too many times I've seen people in my own trade or others, you know, people get screwed out of services or certain agreements, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, these people that they don't have the true value of business, and they don't value themselves enough to provide the best services possible to these people that are paying. I've done some services that wasn't for cash. You know, I've done a couple of trade-offs, like, you know, I'll shoot you, you know, for whatever many hours worth, and help me do something like babysit, or you teach me something that you know, or in trade you would do photo shoot for me. So these types of things can be very beneficial to people, because a lot of times people have actual skills that they're not tapping into, and they could be trading with each other, you know, either through monetary value, you know, through certain things that they have, there's things that they already own that they can trade, or even you know, also by referrals. Like I've done shoots for referrals for because I know that I can get 4 more people that will pay. You know, so there's many different ways you can go about conducting business, as long as, you know, it's all voluntary, and you know, nobody's getting screwed or hurt in the process. Just like you said, everything has to be in contract. You know, I don't believe in going through you know, the U.S. court system, because even to file a claim, if something happens, you have to pay them, and then the person who gets screwed over, they have to pay. So it's, you know, both parties get screwed. So it's always better to just deal with voluntary action, interactions, and also you know, live by your ethics. And the best thing that anarchists can do is give word of mouth, and, you know, it's really driven by reviews. And if, you know, if you got a good experience from me or with Jessica, or somebody, even, you know, somebody that's skilled with you know, farming, or you know, somebody that's a good teacher, etc.
Or building houses, or
Definitely. Yeah, I think that these people have marketable skills, and if they're not known, you wouldn't go to them. So it's very important that we broaden our network, and we continue to work with each other, and we keep promoting anarchism and, you know, voluntarism amongst our communities.
through using the means of which we are advocating is the most accessible means to really understand anarchism, and that's through doing business with one another and having voluntary exchanges with one another. I think that we should continue to strive to be businessmen and offer our skills and services to the market. I think this is going to be a key point. And even if you don't know what it is that you want to do, think about it. Go out there, try to do something. One of my co-hosts on Voluntary Virtues Roundtable show that I do tomorrow, Cody Limbaugh did a show talking about his particular show, just like this one, and how to make it better. And knowing that this preliminary process is the learning curve, right? You're going to try new things. You got to start the show. You have to at least start somewhere before you can add things to it. And, I think most of us try to get this perfect picture of what it is that we need to do and what it is that we need to be in order to, before we even start doing it. It's like if you played like Michael Jordan and never set foot on the court, first off, you wouldn't know that you played like Michael Jordan until you actually stepped on the court. And chances are you're not going to play like Michael Jordan. It's the first time you step on the court. And then it takes practice. It takes skill. Like Michael Jordan didn't play like Michael Jordan until he was like Michael Jordan, in the NBA. So, and that was years and years of practice. Like his practice was getting to the NBA. And even in the NBA, he still had to keep practicing. So, like, you have to keep trying to get better at your craft and perfect it. And I look at this as sort of my preliminaries into understanding and getting out the information of anarchism. For me, mastery is an important important part of life in any skill set, right? In order to become a master, not only do you have to become so proficient that you can do the skill with the simplest of ease, but you also can do the skill while doing something else, such as talking. So then once you've mastered the skill to that level of being able to talk while you do the skill, then you have to master how to teach that skill. And for me, I feel like I've reached the levels of understanding anarchism to the point where I can teach it. Now, I've studied it for countless hours for like 4 years now, 5 years at this point. 4 years, right? I was 29 when I figured out that I was an anarchist. That I was 29 when I figured out that all human interaction should be voluntary, right? And that government is just a group of people who don't give a fuck and will do whatever they want to do for whatever reason and get away with it, right? And I don't think that that's moral. I don't think that that's ethical. So for 4 years, I've been studying the arguments, the counter arguments, and I think I'm in a place where I can teach what I know. Now I'm mastering the teaching of anarchism. So this is my skill. This is what I'm working on. I'm working on mastering teaching. I'm still a dickhead for the most part, mostly because most people think I'm a dickhead and treat me as such. And so when you jump off the argument like that, then we have an issue. But yeah, next week, hopefully Michael will be back. Hopefully we'll have more guests and more hosts. Again, this is my preliminary, so I'm looking to add people to the show and have guests and have more sort of segments for you all to see instead of you all just looking at my big ass head floating on your TV screen without a body for an hour. So this has been our show for the week. Michael, thank you for joining me on this show.
Glad to be here.
And hopefully you can stay for like 15 minutes so we can debrief after the show. But to all of you out there and in the world, hopefully 50 years from now when you're watching this, you'll be like, that Kieran Pearson was ahead of his time. It's like, why were people even doing that whole government shit? But this is me signing off, and have a good life. I'll see you all soon. Peace.